गुड इवनिंग एंड वेलकम टू गना शॉट। गना शॉट में आप सबका स्वागत है। टुडे वी गोना लुक एट facets of civil military fusion, right? And to discuss all this with me is General Harimohan, General Rajiv Narayanan, and both of them, and who are, and like put it this way, all three of us are in IIT, and we thought as a collective that this is something we need to discuss, right? Before I, get into the subject proper and give an introduction and all that, and what are we going to discuss about? At the outset, welcome to both the generals, and give me a one or two liner about this, topic, and then we'll open the discussion.
Thank you, sir. Always a pleasure to be on your platform. The issue is that while we all may say that, yes, post-op Sindoor, yes, you become strong, you become powerful, you're becoming economically strong. But op Sindoor was at a limited place over a limited time. In the larger perspective of things in this multi-domain threat that we face, there is an urgent need for this civil military fusion, and I would add civil military academia industrial fusion, because money, as you go into higher end of the technology, it becomes very costly. So you need to disperse the cost in a manner that the sum of the parts is greater than the whole.
Yeah.
So I will stop it.
Yeah. I think that's a very apt way of putting things. Your initial view, Hari, and then we'll set the stage for further discussions.
Firstly, thank you for having me on your show. When I look at civil-military fusion, sir, if you want to have, can't hear me, sir?
Yeah, we can hear you. You'll have to speak a little louder or increase your volume.
Can you hear me now, sir?
Yeah. Go ahead.
So when I look at civil-military fusion per se, it has been a kind of a way the people look at militaries. Somehow there is a vertical separation between military and other resources in our country. We always believe army or the military will be brought in as the last resort. And over a period of time, there has been a tendency to try and keep the military away from most of the activity that happen in the nation. After the NDMA was formed, even the aid to civil authority, they don't touch military these days. So as a result, it is, trying to compartmentalize military as a separate facet, which is not good for the country. Because nation building happens when all elements of the nation come together. So I would put it this way, it has to be a different way to look at a developed nation where every aspect of national power comes together towards that overall aim as such. And civil military fusion is just one step towards that direction.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Let me, what they've said is absolutely valid, but let me put a context in so that we have a platform on which we can discuss on a common footing. We talk of Viksit Bharat by 2047. And, for a Viksit Bharat, you need a Surakshit Bharat. If Bharat is not Surakshit, it will not be Viksit also. And in case you want Viksit Bharat, Surakshit Bharat, you need to do more, to keep it secure. And for that, I think civil military fusion is very, very important. And like what both the generals have said, Op Sindoor has shown that there's a huge requirement for civil military fusion. I mean, Op Sindoor was just a 4-day exercise, very small operation in the larger context of India, but many things came out. How the civilian infrastructure, everything came into being, came into use for the military. And a lot of things, like information and this and that, you needed a national approach to handle it, especially in the field of narratives and all that. So after that, I gave it a thought as to, look, what is it that you're looking at? And then I said, okay, let's today discuss on these 4 aspects of civil military fusion. And largely, when you say civil military fusion, These are the four things which probably fit into the thing. The first is politico-military fusion, so that the politicians and the military people who are mandated for the security of the nation think together and they fuse together to operate together. Then there's the issue of information, strategic communication, and new technologies. And these are all dual tasks, dual role stuff, building narrative or AI. AI can be used in military, it can be used in civil things. So this fusion is also required to be done. Then you have the industrial civil military fusion, where the industry contributes to the military. And largely with the the defense corridors coming up and things like that, a lot of our industrial capacity has to be diverted to the military to put up Surakshit Bharat. At the same time, that diversion will also contribute to the economy. So there is a fusion there of a lot of varieties. And then there's the economic and financial. Why I say economic and financial fusion is for a country like us, which cannot afford, investment into GDP, investment into the military the way we want it. And we've been stagnating at just about 2% of our GDP for military expenditure. You need to have some kind of economic and financial fusion so that you can raise money to fund your military and to make it in such a manner that the military, as it grows, funds back the nation, whether it's to defense exports, job creation, promotion, new technologies, or whatever. So I think these are the four broad issues of civil military fusion, which I thought I'll take, views of both the generals, and then we'll see. We'll take the views on all these four issues. I'm by no means going to tie them down to these three, four aspects. I mean, you can take it whichever way you want, and whichever facets we want. We'll go through a couple of discussions. I mean, a couple of rounds of discussion. And I'll first start with General Narayanan. All yours, Narayanan. You have your free hand and free word about all this.
Yes. Uh, Politico-military fusion. Certain countries, they still refer to it as civil military because they look at bureaucracy and politicians as civil. So there are about 4 or 5 points on which I given my thought. The first issue is that whenever the politicians and the bureaucrats they start laying out the infrastructure, they got to keep the military in mind so that the military can use that infrastructure. It's not just about the making of the highways in such a manner that the aircraft can land, or like we have
Yeah.
requisitioning civil this thing. These are basic issues. I still remember when I was G1 Ops, like offline, I was talking to you in 16 days. So at a particular area, which was of concern to us, which was critical to us, the civil authorities reached out to us because the implementation in Punjab area was very strict that you got to take military clearance. You would know that you were the DM 15 brigade there. They came that they were wanting to make this drain. And we sat in the GS branch, made out the specifications, and converted that drain into a DCB in the manner in which we wanted it, ditch cum band. That whatever you're going to dig out, which side is the mud going to be piped, and how to be impacted. And it was done. Now, this is what I look at a fusion, that whatever work they are doing is fusing, it's fusing with the military needs. Similarly, they got to be up and about in their bureaucratic departments like DST and others, that they must look at the technological convergence that is needed, whatever they are bringing in, whatever they are going to lay out, that there is a convergence with the military so that the dual use technology comes to the military also, and military is not kept out. I'll come to it a little later. Why I'm saying again and again military being kept out, which was alluded to also by General Harimohan. You need talent and expertise, both sides. That means the people who are going to be sitting at the decision-making process need to be able to comprehend the national security needs and how the technology blends with that. If you don't have this decision-making people who comprehend these issues, you're going to have a problem. You'll be only paying catch-up. So while we can say that we must have a collaborative environment to foster development of talent and other things, but it is this lack of comprehension, I believe, which leads to vertical silos. So you hesitate to share. If you're knowledgeable about it, you can share and you can answer the other verticals' doubts. And that is where I bring the major point that now that you're rising, can a generalist approach, whether it be a bureaucrat or whether it be a minister or a state minister sitting in that department, work, or do you need specialists? I think it's time we started looking at specialists for certain critical on your security and your, when you look at CCS, when you look at your CC Cabinet Committee for Economic Affairs, you need specialists to be sitting there. It is, I think the need has come. You need to break down barriers. How do you break down barriers? By creating the CDS, you created more verticals. The whole concept which started with the CDS post Kargil was to blend everything. That the services would also be part of the Ministry of Defense. You're still an attached headquarters. So you have MOD, you have service headquarters, you had IDS, you now have DMA and the office of CDS. You're only creating more and more headquarters. Then how do you break the barriers? That is where you need to blend these, and that is how the cultural and bureaucratic differences will go away, and you learn to trust each other. And it cuts both ways. So you need to be able to trust each other. Barriers can be broken only when you trust each other. That is what will, I would say, foster mutual trust. And the last point on national security. You've created a CDS. Who's going to sign that Union War Book? A generalist or a specialist? It's the Union War Book, which is the declaration of war. Can a generalist, whether it be in the CCS or whether it be the defense secretary, or you say, no, I will make the cabinet secretary sign, do they understand the meaning of that and comprehend what it entails? So when we look at the fusion, this is what I'm seeing. And there are plenty of examples. You look at Pentagon, you look at the Department of Defense in the UK, you look at the Department of Ministry of Defense in Russia. You can take certain positives from the manner in which the CMC has been reconstituted and people have come in. So we have to look. I don't want us to copy somebody. Learning from that, we can chart our own path. So this is the need essentially today in civil military fusion. Two major issues. A, the decision makers at the military and the bureaucratic level must be able to comprehend the issues at stake on which they are going to make a decision, whether it be technology, whether it be national security. National security, I don't think the bureaucracy in the Ministry of Defense understands it as much as in the Home Ministry, because that's the job they are doing throughout 24/7. Whereas in the Ministry of Defense, these people are parachuted from outside. That's one. And number two is the actual merging and breaking of barriers between the civil and the military within the M.
Yeah. I think those are very valid points which you brought out. Let me, General Harimohan, I think, is having problems with his computer or whatever. He's got thing. He'll join in. When he joins, we'll take his views. The very important point, which underlines what General Narayanan has said. In most countries, actually, he said that in the beginning. I want to highlight it. That's very important. In most countries, when you say civil military fusion, it is between the political entity and the military entity, because they are the ones who are mandated in the constitution of any country to defend India, right? But 1 minute, 1 minute. Just Rajiv, just continue. I'll come back. 1 minute.
Yeah. So the
Yeah.
basic.
Yeah, 1 month. Yeah, Hari is getting back. Good. Right. So as I was saying, Hari got locked out, so I was trying to get him in somehow. Okay. So as I was saying, in any country, it is the politician and the military person who is mandated by the constitution to defend the country, and they have an equation 1 to 1. Even in USA, you see, the Trump is the president. He's a commander in chief also. He is assisted by a defense secretary, and the military is under him. It's a one line, and the defense secretary is a political entity, and under him is the chief of defense staff, and end of story. Or they are the chairman, joint chief of staff. Yeah, absolute correct. In our case, there's a very funny thing. Between the military and the politician, you have a bureaucrat. He is a guy who's mediating between the two for some funny reason, and he's got no responsibility. I mean, he's got all authority and no responsibility. He's got no accountability either. Okay, tomorrow when something happens, whether it is in Anantnag or when in Pahalgam or for that matter on the LOC or on the border, everyone asks the chief of army staff or the chief of defense staff or the Raksha Mantri. No one asks the defense secretary. But he wields all the authority. So this is a major thing of the thing, right? So fine. So so far, Rajiv has covered politico-military fusion. So let's take Hari's view on this. Hari, your view on politico-military fusion. We'll get to the other things later.
So when we started talking about this, I was taken back to my NDC days. So one was trying to find how the NDC was conducted, and one of the aim of NDC was to make us good administrators. And now that IIT is looking after the MBA program, we are all involved in it. Two things I would like to say. One is the three of us who are in uniform are now part of the academia. It was not happening maybe a decade ago. It was possibly something that you started, and more and more people are now joining. There is a hesitancy in the civil and the academia to take on board the military, and that over a period of time has been pushed to a corner. Now slowly some things are changing. Especially IIT Madras has taken lead. Three of us are sitting here. More will follow. I guess other IITs are also starting to look at it. That is one side of the story. Now even people get called into other kind of administration post their retirement. So the use of that person is taken into account as far as administration is concerned. I look at politico-military problems with the overall construct of our constitution. We have this three sets of lists, the central list, the state list, and then the concurrent list. Half of our ministries are working in the state lists. The areas where military wants, what General Narayanan was trying to say, let's take irrigation for the matters. Irrigation by and large is a state list. He gave an example of a positive result. There can be 10 examples of a negative results, especially let's say 21 of our divisions, I will not name it, where a canal, if it had been sited in a manner, it could have been a use as a defense-oriented canal. It has not been done. Had it been taken about, let's say, 10, 15 kilometers in a particular manner, when it was being constructed. It could have been used both by the civil as well as the defense, but it was not done. There, all of us have gone through series of exercises in Maj Gen ranges. I have been part of conduct of two EWTs, and it takes a huge amount of effort to get the irrigation department to let us use a section of the canal. They will not fill in the water when we need it. They will not allow us to train in a particular area. So there is so much of restriction in the way the civil looks at military, and that needs to be cut down at the higher end. People have to understand that we are part of the same system, and that is something which is missing today. Similarly, there are other ministries. When you look at even, let's say, Ministry of Education, half of the places people are not bothered as to what is the level of military education. How can we use civil education to use as dual use for military education? We are doing a study, all of us, in terms of technology infusion into the army, and we realize there's so much of things which can be done from the civil, which need not be duplicated inside the military, but then we do it. So that area of disassociation between the two agencies, that's why I said army and the military as such has been closeted as not to be touched, one corner. And that whole thing of Indian Army is a political organization. It has got nothing to do. It is separated. We are still happy to live in isolated cantonments, and they are looked at as such. And that needs to go. I feel we need to look at the way America has done. They have actually used the military to the best of their capabilities. And people possibly will have to have dual jobs. So maybe to an extent, some kind of, I won't say compulsory military service, but some kind of military service needs to be mandated, especially at least to the bureaucrats. They need to have a kind of, then only that association will come, otherwise they will not look at it. And the center versus state needs to stop. Military has to be seen both at the center and the state list. I have attended tons of these civil military liaison conferences, and all of them have been totally unproductive. And it is always, we attend those conferences and we sit and come back with nothing to, gain out of it. So we have to lot of mileage to go. That's why when you said this, I said, so this is an extremely vast subject. We can keep talking till the cows come home, because huge amount of area that needs to be covered. And the thing has to come from the civilian side. They have to bring people in. They have to ensure that they have to open up to the military, use military as a leverage and not use it as a tool. That is something which needs to be conveyed to the civil and the political hierarchy. That's what I feel.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I think that is well covered. The fundamental thing, unless the politician and the military guy are on the same page, the nation starts to suffer. And this being on the same page, what both the generals have said, doesn't start, at the top and finish at the top. It has to start and go down to the bottom, right? Or start at the bottom and go down. The entire vertical has to be fused. That's the first part. And this has to cut across the state, the concurrent, and the central list. Very important. Very few people understand this. And it has to be over time. It's not that because there's a war, you start doing it. You have to do it much before in advance and take it further. So we touched upon that. Now let's get to the next thing which we were looking at. The second aspect is information, strategic communication, and new technology fusion. Okay. So, and we've seen this in Op Vijay, and Op Sindoor, and where we felt that, our ability to do strategic communication on good, pass information and handle our narratives has not come out very well. Right. And as we go along, we'll need definitely a lot of new technology fusion. So let's get Rajiv's views on this. Over to you, Rajiv.
Sure, sir. I'll just, as a backdrop, I was called by the CDS to take 2-3 lectures on strategic communication. They called on cognizant warfare, where strategic communication was a part of it. for all three services and IDS headquarters who were handling this. So we had a good discussion over 5 days. Case studies was also discussed, and there were 3-4 of us to explain to them what they were doing wrong. And as a fallout of that, since Claus was writing a book on Ops Sindhu, I was asked to write a chapter on strategic communication. So I'll just briefly mention what exactly is strategic communication, which I found none of our people who they said also they have done some courses in communication understood, nor did the person who was given, who is a reputed, I would say, runs a reputed communication channel, comprehend it. So I will just give certain points. What exactly is the aim? It is to shape the cognizant environment. That has to be understood. That here it is the virtual domain. You are targeting the mind. Unless you get that right, you will go wrong. Your messaging has to be tailored. What you send to a core cannot be sent, same cannot be wordings used to a division or a brigade or a unit. The wordings have to be different because the context at core is different, div is different, brigade is different, and the unit level is totally different. So you can't cut, paste, and copy out there. And it has to go to the right people at the right time. And that is how you retain initiative, so that the other side narrative you can kill. It is not just within the military. You are also messaging to the civilian population, and you're also messaging to the world at large when you are in conflict. So the first thing is it has to be coordinated at one level. Your civil and military, here civil military fusion comes in a big manner. You can't have your military saying something else and your civilian people dishing out something else. It has to merge. It has to be together. And what images are you going to use? In what context are you going to create the narrative? How are you weaving the virtual, the augmented CGI and AI into that to send your messaging? Today, that is also very important. Next part is it's a continuous effort. Having sent a message today in the morning, early morning, if you think tomorrow early morning or evening every day, 5 o'clock, I want to do it, you lost the battle. Every 3 hours or something, you got to keep feeding something or the other to the people because people are thirsting for information. And whatever message you have given out, they have to understand that that is going to be discussed at large at all the medias everywhere. And the media is waiting for something new. And if the other side has thrown something new, you lost the battle. You need what is more important, where we are failing, and the West is a past master at it. Targeted audience analysis. See, what message I sent to a person in Tamil Nadu will not work. The same message will not work in Karnataka or Kerala. The wording and text of the message has to, see, the crux of the message can be the same. The wording has to change for him to understand. Like if you're sending in military terms, for the people listening, if I'm sending a message to the infantry, the same message, the text has to be slightly different to an armored corps or an artillery or an AD. It cannot be verbatim the same. His understanding of the concept is different. The understanding of concept at RT level and armored level and the mech level or the AD level is totally different. The spread of information that he needs is totally different. Now, if you have not comprehended that, then you lost. How will you do the strategic communication? And how that for the targeted analysis, military needs to task the DIPR. You have DIPR. They've got to put the boots on ground, start telling you what is the context in which you got to go, especially for the civil. Military, you'll still manage because you understand the man who's in the military uniform, what type of texting is required. How do you understand the civil? What does ADGPI give out? In what manner? So you need that DIPR. once you have sent it, how are you getting it? Ask your PROs. You have got your PROs on ground at various levels. They should start getting the feedback now from the ground to go back to them that the wording is okay, not okay. That is missing. You're using PROs just to give out your printed press release. I'm sorry. Got to look at the larger perspective. And that is how you will be able to achieve your objectives. And it is a step-by-step approach. If you got to reach X, you got to plan your complete, it's a complete strategic communication strategy and phase, like we do an operation, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. This has also got to do in phases, in a step-by-step approach. And the scope is vast because you have the military and public diplomacy, your military public affairs, because the text that you're going to give abroad, you have your DAs and others abroad. You're not using them to give messaging. Why not? He's your man there on ground. Don't you trust him? You trusted him, you have sent him as the DA. You're not using him for these things. Why not? He has the option at various countries that he can give out the information to the press. You not use them. Similarly, and all this is essentially, you got to understand these as part of PSYOPs, information warfare and PSYOPs. Like we won the battle and the campaign in Op Sindhu, and for nearly a week to 2 weeks after that, you lost the narrative battle. It is only much later that now people are coming out and yes, you spoke the truth. But it's much later. So anything that you do at the conflict zone, the strategic communication has to be a separate part of it. You got to train your people. You can't just pick up like most of the BGS IWs are trained in NDC. NDC doesn't train you for these. And now, when you need such specialists, there will be multiple domains of specialists. You got to relook your command channel funnel for promotion. Maybe some vacancies has to be set aside. Let it also be a pyramid in the staff domain for him to come up, because here you need a specialist to strategize and do things for you. And it's not an easy battle. You got to be up on your toes and you got to think on your toes, because not only are you putting out your narrative, you got to negate the contrarian narrative that is also coming out, because grant the enemy also, he will also bring out his narrative. So that is what is information and strategic communication all about.
Yeah, I think that was very good. Your views, Hari.
So most of it has been covered by General Rajiv, but a couple of things which I will like to take it a little differently. Firstly, when I look at, I'll take the two extremes. So I'll take the Pakistan way or the Chinese way. So I call it the infrared, where it is the narrative of the military which comes out. And it is the military which drives the narrative. And then the ultraviolet is us. We are on the other extreme. We say, no, military should stay away from press. They will get the bureaucrats to, be the front side. I'll take a simple example of an operation that happens, let's say, in J&K tonight. The person who conducts that operation, who's leading that operation, is the guy from the Rashtriya Rifles. And this is not the first time I'm mentioning it. When I was in service, I raised this issue. But the guy who comes in front of the camera is a policeman who's been possibly not there at the point of contact. And then he gives his views of the operation that happened, which may or may not be the manner in which it was conducted. And it's a common thing. I'll take you back, I was I was heading the COVID setup in J&K. And initially, the Lieutenant Governor reached out to me. So they wanted us to, help them in vaccinating a large populace. And 3 days later, the health secretary says, no, army should stay out of it. We'll do the, front side of it. While our people were in almost every corner of J&K, we are all aware. The grid covers almost every corner of J&K, which even the police doesn't cover. We are there. That is why the governor called on us to take it on. So what I'm trying to say is, in our manner, somehow there is a reluctance in the civil bureaucracy to let the narrative run through the military. I don't want to be the front face of any narrative, no. But if the narrative involves me, I should be the front head. Ops Sindoor, I felt what happened after 2 days should have happened on day one. It should have been the DGMOs who should have run the narrative, not the military Ministry of External Affairs. This is my personal vision. Possibly what General Narayanan says. He says we caught on after 3 days. I think we haven't caught on after 2 months. We are still struggling to put our narrative out. We are still struggling to tell what happened on the 7th of May, because there was a kind of a blanket put on narrative on that particular day. Everybody is now trying to find ways to communicate, trying to change the narrative, because if a president of a Western republic gets up in the evening and makes a narrative, people run to his, not knowing that he has never been in contact with what happened on the 7th of May. So it is very difficult to resurrect a narrative once it goes out of hand. And that is why I feel strategic narratives should be handled at the highest level, with everybody who is involved in that particular strategic continuum to be part of it. And it cannot isolate the military. And that's where I feel there is a lot amount of fusion which is required. The second thing which one has seen, whether it was when the Chinese came calling on us in Ladakh, or whether it happened in Doklam, whenever or even let's say an incident which happens, a terrorist incident happens, all these media channels, they start propagating. Suddenly everybody becomes experts. Anybody and everybody in uniform is called, and he becomes a defense expert. A person who has not seen north of Pathankot is talking about how mobilization has to happen in Ladakh. And some of these people, they don't know what they are talking, and that's what happened in this current scenario. When there were some so-called defense experts sitting in studios who were capturing Karachi and Quetta, when nothing was happening in that area. Somebody had captured 4 Pakistani pilots also. And what happens with this is, when these narratives becomes false narrative, the main story gets lost in it. And that is where I feel that there needs to be a centralized agency. We have to be part of it. The ADG PI in this kind of a thing has to be proactive. He cannot be a reactive person. And I somehow find the Press Information Bureau has gone silent. I don't see it active as it should be. There has to be a national narrative which has to have a larger structure in place, which should have all these people involved in it. Because every day something or the other is happening where Army or Air Force or Navy is involved. They have to convey their narratives across. Today, if Apache helicopter has come into the Indian Army, that is being narrated by somebody who knows nothing about what that helicopter is all about. Why that helicopter has come, what is its capability, that has not been conveyed. The narrative has not gone out. Similarly, like we were mentioning, there are so many other things where the national power, comprehensive national power, needs to be communicated to the world. It doesn't get communicated. And if we want to become so-called, a regional power, or a power worth talking about, there needs to be a system where we put our narratives out. There is no point of having a 1.2 million strong army and not putting across its capabilities or its achievements. And somehow I find that our achievements are not getting the kind of voice that they deserve. Especially today, everybody is talking about going gaga about that missile which landed in Rahimyar Khan or at Bolari or all these air bases. Well, then there was a system which went by which that missile reached there. That nobody is talking about. Today, the entire media is going gaga about, exports of missiles. That's not the issue. The capability which we demonstrated needs to be put across. That has not come out somehow. And I feel that kind of a narrative needs to be taken. And I have a little more problem, because with the way cyber is coming into the system, the artificial intelligence, which somebody said, narratives can be built like this and can be destroyed like that. So if you are not up and about, if you are not fused properly into the system, and you are brought into the system at a very late stage, by that time the whole narrative is gone. Today's day of social media, there is no catch up. What has been lost on 7th and 8th of May cannot be resurrected, sir. Whatever you may keep putting, you may send 10 delegations across to the world. What has already gone as a narrative cannot be changed. And that is what has, if you have not learnt it after Op Sindoor, I'm sorry. We're going to be, digging the same thing 2 years down the line. We did the same thing during Galwan. I must tell you this because I was in the headquarters. We were talking to veterans, people who are going on studios and making claims. We are contacting them, telling them to moderate the way they discuss. We were trying to get the ADGPI to run a narrative, but then narrative doesn't happen that way. People just start making their own narratives on social media and it gets percolated down. So it's very difficult to resurrect something which has already gone wrong. And there needs to be a very well-organized central agency in my mind. It has to be a top-driven agency, possibly at the NSCS level, which has to take on of the strategic communications. And it has to percolate down both verticals of the armed forces as well as the civil bodies. And we should all be speaking the same language so that there is no contradiction. What is being released to press, what is being spoken on media, it should be all based on a central narrative that should be communicated. And without that, we'll end up, creating nuisance to ourselves.
Yeah, I think both the generals have made very, very valid points. What today we are seeing is a disjointed communication setup. It's not fused. There's a long way to civil military fusion. On strategic communication or information or new technology and all that. They've both given two different facets of this problem. And let me tell you, here I have a third facet of this problem. Look, this is something which is very important, which Saurabh has brought about. He says, I believe our people have been fed so much with disinformation by Western media that we have developed a credibility problem. First, we need to break that trust.
Absolutely.
It's not that what you're putting out is being trusted or not. You don't have credibility within your own people. And
credibility pardon my interruption. So the credibility is lost because he was first off the block.
First, yeah. And then when you were second of the block, you spoke in so many voices that it's too late. And you gave out all tribe.
And when you came late, by then, like what Gen Harimohan had mentioned, it is already percolated everywhere.
Right. So I think there's a
Sorry, interrupting. It's not a new phenomenon. When we were discussing, when Golden Temple happened, and we were in school those days, in 1984. Somebody saw it on Doordarshan, and then he said, "Nani, first let me check from BBC." So only when BBC said that Golden Temple operations have started, people started believing. And it is not a new phenomenon. It's been there, and we have not come out of that malice. We are not trusting our own media.
The point is, if you want to be a Viksit Bharat and a Surakshit Bharat, you have to have a communicative Bharat. And that communicative Bharat has to be credible communicative Bharat, where people believe what you say.
Communication thing is very important facet of security.
Security, yeah.
Surakshit, okay. This kind of communication you need to develop. Otherwise, you're not Surakshit.
You're not Surakshit at all. Okay. Let's switch to the third part, industrial civil. In fact, what we'll do is we'll take the other two, industrial civil military fusion and economic and financial fusion together, because they are in some way correlated, and we'll cover both these together. Hari, you have your first go at both these.
So when I was looking at this, it's a subject in itself. So.
And I know it's a subject in itself. It's a huge subject. Today we're touching the top surface. We'll go into depths as we go along.
Everybody wants, when we start looking at fusion, people say, let's make a DARPA. It's so easy to say, DRDO can get converted into a DARPA. It is again like asking for ultraviolet to go to infrared. It is the whole spectrum that needs to be changed. So we can't just one day turn around and say, we will from tomorrow onwards, we'll be Atmanirbhar, we'll have fusion, everything is hunky-dory. It doesn't work that way. The fusion cells have to be, has to be injected at all levels. It will take time for people to understand what is industrial fusion with the military. Today, I was reading somewhere that Armenia, we had sold some weapons and they have asked for a fresh order, and people are going gaga about. They are going gaga about that we are selling some ammunition or missions to Vietnam and possibly Indonesia. Now we have suddenly become, somebody says, export, defense export nation. The other same nation which about 10 years ago, there was a case when the chief read that we don't even have adequate resources to fight our own wars. So we are in the same part. In 10 years, you just cannot transform from one end to the other. We have to grow very slowly. So people should understand that it is a baby step that we have taken as of now. There is a large scope of fusion, and when you go to the industry is very keen. In fact, we were part of a large number of interactions when I was a brigadier, sir was a lieutenant general. We had gone around meeting the industry. People are very keen to come into the defense sector because it gives them double or dual use technology. The only disheartening thing is 10 years down the line, when you go and meet the industry, they are still wanting to come into the system. So there is not enough growth that one could have expected in 10 years. So it is a very slow growth. We need to be positive. We need to take this thing together and by and large try and find a civilian use to most of our technologies. Then only industry will be able to invest big time, because defense exports cannot be the only way of industry making their money. It has to be a dual use kind of a thing that we need to take it forward. To an extent, I will put academia into it, because without the academia coming in, the industry cannot take on. Because the one thing that lacks in India is R&D. Even yesterday or day before yesterday, there was a social media post of one of our opposition leader going to a television factory and ridiculing it, saying everything is coming from China and we are merely assembling it. What he does not realize that China was doing this in 2000, the early parts of this millennium, when it had taken all this technology out of America and started assembling. Over a period of time, not only was he assembling, he was manufacturing. So it's a slow process. We are in our first step. We cannot jump from the first to the last step in the one go. We have to be patient, but at the same time, we have to be perseverant. We have to continue pushing to an extent that we are able to create an industrial base that is both favorable to our economy as well as the defense forces. That is something which I feel we should inculcate. The second thing which I feel, I don't know whether it's the right way to put it across, we need to have a larger opening in terms of awareness of the defense forces. NCC was taken as one kind of a medium by which we could reach out to the civil populace as to what armed forces are all about. But unfortunately, the NCC has not, in my mind, given those dividends which one was expecting. The people who join the NCC barely join with an aim of coming and joining the forces. I feel if the larger nation is aware as to what goes into defense forces, it will be able to look into those aspects when you look at economic and industrial fusion. And it has to come as a policy statement. Somebody was saying, this Agniveer scheme will be able to, build it. I don't think so, because Agniveers are not targeting on those levels. We have to look at a little larger levels. Possibly that is where I look at academia. We need to look at academia to join up and try and take these things forward. There needs to be more money invested into defense-related research. That is something which I feel is still lacking. We cannot have one agency called the DRDO doing everything. Right from, when they were during COVID, they were making masks and they were making IPs. And suddenly they have started making new sets of longer ranges missiles, everything, which I don't see it happening on ground. It is all in paper. So there has to be a larger degree of academia involvement. We are making a little advance in it. I'm sure other IITs and other academia will also come forward. We need to step in and fill the gap which is there to ensure that the industry is able to manufacture what the defense needs. And it again, like I said, has to be dual need kind of growth. Sir.
Yeah, thanks a lot. There are a lot of valuable points. I'm not going to summarize anything. Your views, Rajiv.
Yes, sir. Very valid what General Hari has said. I'll just add a couple of points. Like, fine, you're making all these things, but there are certain core things that we still lack. And that most important is engine, which we still don't make. So
Yeah, we don't
let's
make
be
auto
on,
rickshaw engines also. Sorry for butting in. We
that's
don't
what
make
I'm
auto
saying.
rickshaw engines also.
Let's be on Mother Earth and not float in the sky. Because these are what I feel is where we lack is combination of distinct core technologies. Because when you're trying to make an engine or a jet engine or any such thing, like even robotics, there are multiple disciplines that have to come together. And you need somebody who comprehends these and who can orchestrate these things to come together, which at the moment the thrust has not been there. And we need to push for that. Will the current RDI scheme of the government create for it? Could be, with the hub and spoke of hub being the IITs and the spoke being the others. It could be. Then the essential issue which comes here is, like General Hari had mentioned, that only R&D is doing it for you. Now that we have taken that first baby step, coming into the academia, reaching out to the military, private sector also coming in, we got to start looking, apart from this RDI, this the government has given. What is the private sector giving? Are you funding labs to do this kind of research? Are you funding in this hub and spoke? Are you going to fund your scholars to do specific research? Because while we are very good in pure sciences, we are very weak in applied sciences. Applied science is when you can take this pure science and apply it for some projects for day-to-day life. That is what is lacking. And this is where I find at the lower level, because this is TRL 6 to 9 which the RDI is targeting. Who is going to target the TI 1 to 5? Which is where the conversion takes place of your pure sciences to applied sciences. After that only he goes to 6 to 9. So who's going to give you this funding? If the academia is going to do it themselves, this is where I find the public and private sectors to start coming in, so that you get that full spread of your TRL. The funding is spread. Sponsoring students. And most important part, for the military, I have always said, capability development takes time. Procurement of projects takes time. A lot of times, you will understand, sir, since you have been part of the acquisition process like me, lot of portion of your money gets eaten up by the committed liabilities. Means, if I'm buying, let us say, the same which General Hari had mentioned about the Apache for the Indian Army has come. First lot of 3 has come. You would have paid X amount earlier. Now you're going to pay him the next Y, and the balance Z is going to come when the Z will come when the next 3 come, and the balance come when all the spares and everything come. So now that payment schedule becomes a committed liability since I've already signed the contract. Now, if you have you're unable to spend, though they've said this is the year of change, we are going to change the process and bring it down to 2 years, procurement process. Wonderful. I really don't know whether it can happen. If it takes that, why not create a separate defense capability development fund with the RBI? Whatever is the carry forward of the capex, put it there. Over a period of time, you'll suddenly find that this DCD fund will cater for the committed liability. And then your fund that you have, you can go in for more and more capital acquisition. And in this, I will add, you must also sponsor research in all facets of strategic communication. Strategic communication is not just this. You have digital media, you have cyber, you have AI. There are so many facets to it. China, their information support force, has opened a special college. They have combined two colleges and they've given the separate college, and it's eye opener that they have understood what it involves and entails, and all that is going to be taught. And from there, the experts are going to come who will be utilized for strategic communication. We haven't got that thought as yet. And the reason I'm saying this economic and financial fusion, then the burden of money is spread. Is spread. As you go higher at the high-tech end, it becomes costly. So government has given something. The public and the private sector also should start funding something. And then you find, like what I said initially, the sum of the parts will become greater than the whole.
Yeah, I think both of you have put in fantastic points. And let me add a few issues to it. And look, we're speaking of economic and financial fusion, technology fusion, information fusion. All this rides on a fundamental thing called technology. You need to make technology, and that technology can be used either in defense or in communication or in industry or in everywhere. So, who's funding that technology? You want AI parks, this, that. You want venture capitalists to come in. You need to have startups to have money, and startups need to have an environment in which they have to scale up. Industry has to grow. You have to have an export regime. You have to enable FDI to come in. You have to go to the market and raise money. Even people from the market will, for example, these days you find in the market, I'm sure, all the defense stocks are going up. That's raising money. You can go to the market with IPOs for technology. So I think we need to be innovative in this, because fundamentally, if you can manage your money, you have your macro policies, you enable the brains of this country to come out, and they're funded to get it. I mean, that funding might be garage funding. That's it. But that fellow has to have that money to start his garage. So I think all these things are there and a whole lot more. I think we've had a terrific discussion, and I'm not going to take any questions because today a lot of people are giving general comments. And today was an overview of this business called civil military fusion, which we have started. In fact, civil military fusion, to my way of thinking, is the sum of many parts, which is today overview. I'm going to break this up in smaller parts and see where we are going. That's what I'm telling for everyone. You see, we are there. All three of us are together working in IIT, and we are trying to enable this happen. Probably in from IIT, except the first one, the politico-military fusion, which we can't really enforce. But information, strategic communication, technology, industry, and economic fusion is something we can. And this is a journey which we've started. It's a unique journey where all three of us are called process of practice, and we are starting some initiatives so that Viksit Bharat and Surakshit Bharat goes on the same line. Just wait, maybe next week, or we will see how to take maybe 2-3 episodes in a month we'll do on these subjects. We'll pick up, we'll think of it and come back to you. And let's see how we can make a better Viksit Bharat. And your last words on this, Hari, and then of course we'll go to Rajiv and we'll close it. Hari.
So firstly, I totally agree with you. Like I said, each of these facets is a subject in itself, and possibly we can speak and discuss for hours and still not be finding short of time. That having said, one thing which needs to be, somebody has to put it together is human capital. The amount of experience which is there in the system, which people somehow don't utilize in full. There are many other people who can possibly contribute in big manners in this kind of area. Today, what is happening is everybody is doing bits and pieces with no organization. If there is an organized, fusion of things, then by and large, what will happen is the entire circle will get completed. Otherwise, what will happen is we'll make segments in between, and there will be gaps. And as long as there are gaps, the circle is not completed. Nothing moves. We have to ensure that all aspects are taken care of, and that's why I feel it has to be a top-driven kind of an initiative. Though, like you said, sir, we'll try in our own little way, taking it from bottom upwards. But I'm sure people who are listening to this and this kind of a communication goes out, that civil military fusion is the order of the day. We don't want to become a China, where PLA is the face of the government. We don't want to become a Pakistan, where DGISPR tells what is happening inside Pakistan. But we can definitely become a USA, which is having a sufficient amount of strategic value, and they are center aligned. They are neither too socialist, they are not too towards the, I'll say, defense forces. So that is the kind of fusion one should try and push towards, and we should try and create every level, like what General Rajiv was mentioning. Various levels at which interactions happen: district level, state level, national level, industry levels. So there has to be many more such places in which people have to come together. They'll have to give out their capabilities and limitations, which needs to be quantified, and thereafter they have to be used in the manner that those limitations are filled and the capabilities are utilized. Until and unless we have an organized method of doing these things, we can keep talking about why this is not there. Like I said, 10 years ago I did my NDC, you did the NDC another 10 years earlier. But what happened after that? Today we are all part of a possible group together, trying to find and crib about why so and so thing is not happening. But that aside, are we contributing towards making it happen? I don't think so. So there needs to be a top-driven initiative, I feel. And I again want to re-emphasize, maybe we can have a discussion on this subject. Is the NCC, the way it is organized today, the right way forward, or needs to be enlarged? And this, I feel, require a large amount of discussion, because there's a huge scope. The way NCC is reached out to every district, every corner of the country, we need to make that as a vehicle to push for civil military fusion. And I also feel there is a need to have more number of I will say service related people in administration at some levels, so that they can give the right kind of inputs. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks. Rajiv, your final thoughts for the day, not final thoughts just for the day.
So the essence is like what Hari mentioned. Okay, during our time, we used to dream of being part of the academia and having closer interactions with the academia. Fine, it's taken 8-10 years, but it started happening now. So I'm sanguine in the same way if we keep speaking about it. The trust deficit and the barriers at various levels will start breaking, and you will find more response coming in. Essentially, I find like as far as private players are concerned, their biggest concern is, if I put in so much of money, what will I get? Essentially, the worry is that the MOD has a negative list. It's a massive negative list, and you're trying to stop it. And unless the government approves it, you're not able to sell. Like what Kalyani is selling to Armenia is only because the government has approved him to sell it. Otherwise, he can't. And when people say that we should follow DARPA, then we got to remember that the American companies is not worried about selling only to America. He sells it worldwide. And he doesn't need to. FMS is a different issue. He can sell it, not just his equipment, the weapon system or the platform, the systems, the subsystems, everything he can sell. Now, unless you give that kind of an environment to your private player, why is he going to invest billions of dollars and then end up that you're not getting it? Just look at the saga which we have discussed about Zorawar also. Sir. Now suddenly you've opened up a tender. There are 5 companies who have come up. Nobody has done anything except for DRDO and L&T. When DRDO and L&T had made it, give them, no. Why are you going through this process? Same is the case with our submarine, which got so much delayed. Finally, you gave it to that German company
L&T.
because they had a validated and functioning AIP. Whereas the Spanish Navantia had only it on design. They couldn't show it on ground. When you know that this is going to be the case, why drag? Why drag so long? So these are certain red tapeism that needs to be overcome, which has to be thought through. Because every time, like, we can keep cribbing about the defense industry, the DPSUs. Now, speaking for them, every time you place an order, he's got to go through the L1. Now, the L1 in the first order may be different. Now, the L1 in the second order may be somebody else. And then you get after him that you're not able to provide me sustenance. How does it do it? The chap who had the L1 earlier, you have not given it to him. He shut shop and started making something else. The day we learn from the West that you got to permit your companies to make their ecosystem and work with their ecosystems, that is where trust deficit exists. You break that, you'll automatically find all this that we are talking, that the industry should come with us, the industrial civil military fusion should take place, everything will take place. A war to break that is going to take a little time. But it'll happen.
Yeah.
It'll happen,
It'll happen.
maybe 10 years down the line.
Yeah.
I just want to, sorry, butting in, so just wanted to add, the kind of neighborhood that we are in. So when you look at Bangladesh or when you look at Pakistan, to an extent even our southern neighbors, that fear our politician has, that the military can't be, brought very close to administration. That needs to go. That Starly factor or the coup factor needs to go. One editor, one evening, dreamt of it and he created nuisance 10 years ago and possibly made so much of noise around it. He still continues to make that noise. But that notwithstanding, when you say our army is totally apolitical, we should accept the army as it is. And I'm sure the army is not going to change just because you involve it into, or bring it into the administration. And I guess that is the order of the day. You can't have, a primary role and a secondary role and a tertiary role. General Rajiv has been in the MO branch. He realized the day floods happen, suddenly, we all start preparing for, how to manage it. And 2 days later, we are sent back into the barracks. So that is not the way a developed nation works. It is okay for, cuckoo nations in, let's say, lesser known countries. It will not happen in India, and we should accept it that our armies and our armed forces are very mature. And we should be part of the nation building exercise in the whole. And we cannot be kept on one side and expect that things will happen on its own. And that is something which needs to, as I said, be driven top down. Even now, the amount of participation we have in higher end discussion tables are very, very minimal. We may have a CDS on ground, but our participation in higher level strategic discussions are very limited because there is a fear that, the army will take over. It doesn't happen so, especially in a nation like us when you have a separate vertical for the, armed police and the army. It doesn't happen, and we should be brought into the system. We should be part of the system. Then only this fusion will happen. It is not that you can start plugging in at various levels and it will get connected. We have to be part of the system, and that has to be top driven.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. Lot of questions, lot of ideas, lot of thoughts. But at the end of the day, the issues which we have raised today, we will have to take it forward. And we'll get back to you with a issue, an equally important issue, and discuss it next time between the three of us. I'd like to thank both General Narayanan and General Harimohan for having come and given their thoughts. A lot of thoughts. Like I said, we'll take them forward till the next time, maybe next week or about 10 days later. Right. And I'd also like to thank all of you who have joined in. Thank you. Good evening. Have a great day and Jai Hind to all of you.
Jai Hind.
Jai Hind, sir.